Imagine this. You stir a spoon of sugar into your morning tea, the same way millions do every single day. But what if I told you that sweetness was once paid for with drugs? Not figuratively, literally. For every sack of sugar that reached London's tables, somewhere in Asia, a chest of opium had changed hands. It's a connection so absurd, so hidden, that when you see it, you'll never look at your cup the same way again. Stay with me, because by the end of this story, you'll understand how something as innocent as dessert was built on addiction. Let's rewind to the age of empire, the 1800s. Britain is obsessed with sweetness. Tea, puddings, marmalades, biscuits, every afternoon becomes a small ceremony of sugar. But there's a problem. The empire's taste keeps growing faster than its profits. The colonies cost more than they bring in, and even the mighty East India Company is bleeding silver. Silver, that's the key. The empire wants tea and sugar from Asia, but China doesn't want British goods in return. They want payment in silver, and silver is running out. So the empire invents a trick. It plants a seed, not of sugarcane, but of poppy. In Bengal, fields begin to bloom with pale flowers whose sap becomes something far more valuable than sugar: opium. This isn't farming, it's accounting. The company sells opium to smugglers in China, earns silver, then uses that same silver to buy Chinese tea and sugar for London. Money never leaves the system. Vice funds virtue. Addiction fuels elegance. Picture a dinner in London. Candlelight, lace, crystal cups. The host raises a toast, a cube of sugar melting in golden tea. No one at that table has ever seen a poppy field in Bengal. No one knows that the sweetness on their tongues came from the same trade that destroyed lives in Canton. That's the elegance of empire. You never see the cost. You only taste the comfort. But this double ledger had another side. In India, farmers were forced to grow poppies instead of food. Loans, taxes, penalties, every harvest bound them tighter to the company's system. Families sold jewelry, land, even their tools, just to pay the debt on next year's seeds. And what did they get? A few coins and the illusion of choice. Imagine being told what to plant, when to sell, and at what price, and then being taxed on it. That's not trade, that's servitude disguised as business. Now here's where the irony deepens. Back in Britain, the same parliament that preached moral purity, that banned gambling and restricted alcohol, was making fortunes off a global drug ring. Opium wasn't illegal, it was essential. Without it, there'd be no cheap tea, no mountains of sugar, no empire built on comfort. They called it commerce, but it was addiction turned into arithmetic. And if you think that was an open secret, it wasn't. It was a whisper buried in ledgers and cargo manifests. The official reports spoke of agricultural exports. The ships carried medicine. Even the word opium disappeared behind bureaucratic euphemisms. The empire was always good at hiding its hungers. Now you might be wondering, did ordinary people know? Did anyone care where their sugar came from? The truth is, they didn't. And that's the genius of consumption. The farther you are from the source, the sweeter it tastes. But that ignorance came with a price, one we still pay in ways we don't notice. Because when a culture learns to disguise elegance as sugar, it doesn't stop with sugar. But this is only the beginning. Because behind every spoonful of sweetness was a machine, one that stretched from the muddy fields of Bengal to the marble halls of Westminster. And the real secret isn't just what the empire sold, it's how it justified it. What happened next would turn morality itself into a business model. And once you see that, you'll understand why the empire never apologized. It just rebranded. Picture the scene. London, 1830. The same politicians who condemned sin in the city's slums were attending dinners where the sugar bowls glittered like jewels. The same clergy who preached temperance were sipping tea paid for by narcotics. And the same newspapers that celebrated civilization were quietly advertising Indian medicinal exports. Hypocrisy wasn't the exception, it was the system. The British Empire had found a way to make morality itself profitable. Here's how it worked. The East India Company didn't just sell opium, it monopolized it. They dictated the price, the buyers, even the shipping routes. Farmers couldn't grow poppy without permission, and they couldn't not grow it either. It was a perfect trap. When profits fell, the company raised taxes on the very farmers it was bankrupting. Every link in the chain, from the field to the factory, was owned, regulated, or taxed by someone wearing the imperial seal. Meanwhile, in China, addiction spread like wildfire. The silver that once flowed into the country now poured out straight into the coffers of London. China's balance collapsed, millions became dependent, and resistance turned to war. The opium wars weren't about drugs, they were about balance sheets. Britain didn't invade for morality, it invaded for math. And what did the British public hear about it? Nothing. In newspapers it was trade disputes. In parliament, defense of commerce. The word opium rarely appeared, because no one likes to admit that desert and destruction share the same recipe. But let's bring this back to you for a moment. Imagine sitting at a London cafe in 1800, the aroma of baked goods, the soft hum of conversation. You stir sugar into your tea, unaware that, as you do, a ship somewhere in the South China Sea is unloading crates marked medicine. You taste sweetness, they taste ashes. It's uncomfortable, isn't it? Because this isn't just history. It's a mirror. We still live in a world where comfort hides cost, where pleasure and pain share the same supply chain. The empire was simply honest enough to write it down. And there's something even darker. The empire didn't just sell drugs, it sold the idea of refinement. The sugar ritual became a symbol of class. Tea time wasn't just a meal, it was moral theater. Civilized people drink tea. And by that logic, those who didn't weren't civilized at all. It's marketing at its most powerful. Turn addiction into identity. The fascinating part,
Many Indian elites began adopting the same rituals. Afternoon tea in Calcutta, sugar cubes imported from Liverpool, porcelain sets stamped royal. The very colonies that supplied the addiction became addicted to the performance of empire itself. The loop was complete. Now you might think this is where the story ends. Exploitation revealed, hypocrisy exposed. But that's only half the truth. Because while Britain was making money from both vice and virtue, it was also rewriting history to make it look inevitable. School books spoke of trade, not trafficking. Maps showed routes, not scars. And in that rewriting, the empire achieved its greatest conquest, the human conscience. But here's the twist most people never hear. The real collapse didn't come from rebellion. It came from success. When everyone started copying the British system, France, the Dutch, even regional Indian rulers, the market flooded. Prices dropped, profits shrank. The same empire that weaponized addiction became addicted to its own wealth. And the question that haunted London wasn't moral anymore, it was practical. How do we keep the sweetness flowing without the stain? What they did next would change global trade forever. And it's something you still see every time you walk into a supermarket. Because the empire didn't stop dealing, it simply found a cleaner drug. And that's where our story takes its most ironic turn.
That cleaner drug, Bula, was sugar itself, refined, packaged, innocent-looking. The empire no longer needed opium to keep its citizens dependent. Sweetness did the job perfectly. No wars, no protests, no moral scandals, just craving disguised as comfort. Sugar became the acceptable addiction, the quiet replacement that nobody questioned. And from that moment on, the British Empire didn't just rule lands, it ruled taste. Factories replaced poppy fields, steamships replaced smugglers, and the addiction that once destroyed nations was now neatly served in porcelain cups. The brilliance and the horror of it all is how seamlessly the empire changed its disguise. From opium dens to afternoon tea, from narcotics to pastries. The product changed, but the system didn't. Control stayed sweet. Think about this. By 1900, the average Briton was consuming more sugar per year than an entire Indian village. The empire had fed its people both addiction and absolution. You could gorge on sweetness and still feel morally pure, because the sin had been sanitized, wrapped in elegance, and sold as progress. Sound familiar? It should. It's the same pattern that modern corporations use today. Hide the cost, sell the feeling, keep the craving alive. But what about India, the source of it all? There, the same poppy-growing districts became sugar-producing districts. Different crop, same poverty. Different exports, same dependency. The machinery of control had changed its label, not its purpose. And by the time India began to reclaim its economy,
The taste of empire was already baked into daily life. Tea with sugar wasn't just a British habit anymore. It was a cultural inheritance, the empire's invisible fingerprint on every kitchen table. You see, that's the real genius of empire. It doesn't need to last politically to survive psychologically. It leaves habits behind, habits that outlive armies. You don't have to fly a flag when you control a flavor. Because every morning when someone stirs sugar into their tea, the empire stirs too, quietly, triumphantly, unseen. Now, pause for a second and look at your own world. How many of your daily comforts have a shadow behind them? Your coffee beans, your chocolate, your phone. Each one has its own hidden chain of hands, labor, and compromise, just like the sugar that once sweetened London's cups. We may have ended empires, but we haven't ended the empire mindset. We've just made it more polite. And here's where the story comes full circle. When you sip something sweet today, you're not just tasting sugar. You're tasting a century of carefully managed memory, a history edited down to flavor, stripped of faces, packaged for comfort. And the real question isn't how did they let this happen? It's how often do we still let it happen now? Because every age has its opium, something profitable enough to justify forgetting. In the 19th century, it was drugs and sugar. In the 21st, maybe it's convenience, attention, or comfort itself. Different substance, same design. Control the craving, and you control the crowd. The British Empire may have fallen, but its formula still runs the world. Turn vice into virtue. Hide exploitation in plain sight. Make dependency taste like luxury. So, the next time you sit down for tea, take a moment before you stir that spoon. Because history isn't in books, it's in your cup. It's in the flavor of a world that learned to make profit from pleasure and silence from sugar. And if this story left a trace of aftertaste, good. Because in the next episode, we'll uncover something even more unsettling. If sugar sweetened the empire, then salt protected it. And once you see what they hid under your doorstep, you'll never walk through your own front door the same way again. Stay curious, stay awake, and remember, history isn't over. It's just hiding in plain sight.